All right. So thank you all so much for being here today, and for anyone watching in the future on the recording. Appreciate that as well. I'm going to just give a little bit of an introduction about retrofitMAINE, which is through this how this webinar is able to happen, and then I'll be able to hand it off to Randy Rand, who is our expert for the day for this quarter's webinar. So as I mentioned, I am part of retrofitMAINE. My name is Mika Heming. I am the director of this program, and we are with passivhausMAINE, a small nonprofit focused on high performance building. And obviously with retrofit, I'm dealing more with the existing buildings. And so I figured I would take a moment to give you a little bit of an idea about what all our programming is, and give you some more information about what all we do, and then I'll hand it over to Randy to go a little bit more in depth and answer some of the questions that y'all might have. So in retrofitMAINE, one of the big things that we're getting started to do and looking forward to doing later this year actually is a new training series, with the idea being these would be very accessible, a lot of virtual options, focusing on different subjects, kind of lunch and learn style as well. You can actually see Randy in this picture, amusingly enough. I did not plan that. It's just one of the better pictures that I have of a previous retrofit training. But we will be working to get really in depth on different subject matter related to retrofit. So for those who are in more of the workforce side of things, and maybe a contractor of some sort, highly recommend checking those out. You're welcome to reach out to me. All of the information for that is on retrofitmaine.org. And we can get you set up so you can get an alert when those do go live. But that is one of the things that I'm really excited about to see coming up soon this year. One of the other things that we do with retrofitMAINE is just a lot of outreach and education. That's why we're doing this webinar. We started this series just this year. This is only our second one, so forgive any issues as we're getting used to it. But trying to do more information out to the public, free as much as possible. We know that there's so much about building science that can be a little bit murky, especially as you start getting more and more into thinking about the performance of your home and how it can be more efficient and really comfortable for you. So it's one of the things that we're doing more and more of. If there's ever any events or anything that you think you would like a presence at, do reach out. We'll be happy to help facilitate that in some way, shape, or form. One of the other things that we've been working on more and more is collecting data for case studies. We want to have a better idea of what real Maine homes are actually like, and then how retrofits for those real Maine homes can look. So especially as we try to get some different sorts of projects done to tighten the envelope, to electrify, to improve ventilation. A lot of the time, we aren't really sure what's realistic. For a lot of retrofits, especially with the older housing stock we tend to have here in Maine. So a lot of that is something that we're trying to collect to help share that information, as well as to use it for any advocacy that we do with the state to help prioritize funds and recognize that, a lot of folks are having issues with A, B, or C, and we're noticing that the prices are really high and being a barrier for folks to be able to do that sort of retrofit. So trying to get that information and currently working on trying to find a good way to present that publicly so that it can be a little bit more understandable and clear. But that's another thing that we've been working on. And then the biggest thing that we have is our energy coaching. And so this is a kind of one-on-one opportunity, free service where we're able to work with a homeowner, renter and landlord, what have you, and provide really customized advice and guidance on retrofitting their home for energy efficiency, really trying to make homes more comfortable, more affordable with the monthly utility bills, more efficient. So what that process looks like, went a little too quick there. What that process ends up looking like is you reach out to us. We have a sign up on retrofitmaine.org. We cover quite a range for geography, Freeport, up towards Lewiston, Auburn, all in between. There are also many other energy coaching programs throughout the state, and I put together a map with contact information for any of them if you happen to be outside our geography, but covered by a different one. And if you are outside of our geography and not covered by one, we are happy to work in a virtual capacity. But regardless, sign up online on that form on the webpage, and we would follow up, get some more information about the home. If you are a low or moderate income resident, we can schedule and provide a free energy audit for you. If you are not, then we still will do a home visit, and we can also coordinate with an independent energy auditor for you to help kind of still combination that process. And note that there's no requirement at any point to continue with energy coaching. I know that some of the time you just need a little something to get the process started, so that's also completely understandable. But this is an entirely free service, so I always highly recommend just reach out to us every now and then, let me know whatever it is, for instance, as a coach that I can help you with. But yes, so once we get that visit all done and we have that audit or coach report, we can then work together to consider prioritization of whatever upgrades you're interested in, and whatever goals you have for your home. So that can look a lot of different ways. One of the things that is most popular as a request is, of course, trying to find all of the financial incentives and rebates that are available for what you're looking for. Help to organize all of the potential projects folks are interested in. They want to know what's DIY-able versus definitely have a professional involved. Many want help to find reputable installers of different equipment or contractors, help comparing quotes. There's so many options for whatever you may want, and we're just here to help support depending on what projects you're interested in doing, what goals you have for your home. And then if you do go through some of the various like upgrades, for instance, with weatherization upgrades or with like a heat pump installation, for instance, we can also, as long as our funding lasts, we're able to also provide a third-party quality review. So that would be through the same person that we normally work with who does the energy audit. And make you give you this sort of report so you have an idea of how that really looked, and you can get a little bit more confidence in that work that was completed. So that's a little bit about what retrofitMAINE does. We kind of run the whole gamut. I will stop screen sharing here, and we can then hand it over to Randy, who can introduce himself a little bit more, but we're very happy to have him here. And I hope that y'all are prepared for questions. I'm sure that Randy will be able to answer at least the vast majority. And we'll be able to do those at the end. You're welcome to throw them in the chat as he's speaking. I'll help share those and facilitate that conversation when he's done. And if not, you're also welcome to unmute after as well, and we can do it that way. So take it away, Randy. Can you find it? I can't do it for you. I think it should be in the bottom. You got it.
There we go. When I started sharing my screen, it went away. Let me bring my back up. All right, perfect. So everybody can hear me now. You can hear me, Mika, right?
Yep, all good.
Okay. So thank you, Mika. Yes, as she mentioned, I am a builder based out of Orono, Maine. I'm Passive House certified. We focus on new construction and renovations to Passive House standard, high performance standard, pretty good house standard. And we cover a vast area of the state. We're trying to hone it in as some of our customers are getting closer to home that are actually starting to understand the performance world. So we're starting to be able to travel less and do things a little closer to home, which I enjoy and my family will enjoy. But I've also been training for passivhausMAINE for 4 years. We do a lot of other online education with different manufacturers and different reps, and we've been in the world for quite a while. I originally started in the architectural engineering field, and early on found sustainability and performance and indoor air quality and healthy homes a priority in that industry. And it just led me down into the building world ultimately. I didn't enjoy being at a desk, and it was just an easy way for me to get in the field. So that's a little bit about me. We're here to talk about retrofits, and it's a good opportunity to, uh, you know, just get some basic stuff out of the way. But really, we want to be able to open it up and allow you to have any questions that, or answer any questions that you might have along the way, with some different things. Um, but some of the basics for a new build or a retrofit, what we are really trying to, just hone in on and make our focus is these five things. Air tightness, thermal insulation, mechanical ventilation, reducing our thermal bridging. So that's one of the reasons we're doing a lot of continuous or exterior insulation these days. And then thinking about high performance windows. That is usually one of the last things. But these are some of the passive house principles that we focus on when we're designing homes and our retrofits. And it's just good to kind of understand them at a glance here in the beginning. One thing is, I don't like not having my camera up when I am presenting to see myself. There we go. All right, that helps. So why passive house? Why did I choose passive house? Why is that our focus? Really, it's for resiliency, comfort, and health. Above anything else, we're not focused on efficiencies, not priority number one. Making things, but as a result of focusing on that resiliency and health and that comfort, we get efficiency and affordable homes to operate. So our main goal always is those three things up front. And when we start talking about retrofits, there tends to be a lot of confusion. We hear the word weatherization out there a lot, and retrofit. You know, weatherization is really like a retrofit light version, is the way I kind of like to address it and talk about it. We start just initially talking about air leaks in convenient spaces. You're not thinking about the whole home, your wall assembly all the way from your foundation to your roof. You're more or less thinking about air leaks in your basement, air leaks in your attic, the things that you can get to, right? You're adding insulation to those same type of places, but you're not trying to look at your entire home as a system. Whereas in a retrofit, it's a whole building approach to all of those things. So we want to think about the air tightness of your entire house and how we can implement it in that existing building. So, and the same thing goes for all those five other things that we discussed there early on, the thermal, windows and door type of strategies. And we want to think about how they're all going to work together as a complete system to improve the indoor comfort of the house. And why do retrofits, why are they important? Well, Maine does have one of the oldest housing stocks in the state, in the country rather, and we have to start making improvements to those. We're not going to, we're starting to see changes in energy codes and new building codes that are changing what we can build, that are getting more stringent on air tightness and insulation and just better performance. But we have to do something about the existing houses because it makes up the majority of the homes that we have in the state. So we got to really start figuring out processes and avenues to help support that industry. But where do our retrofits all begin? They all begin in the planning stage, right? It's good. What we call is making a master plan, and they all begin in a planning stage. So you start to think, oh, hey, I want to start to do some work on the house, or we're not satisfied with X, Y, and Z in the house. Well, that's as soon as you should start planning. And recently we've purchased our own home that's going to be a retrofit. And the first things that we did is we started planning before we actually purchased the house, right? So we started looking at the houses, our potential homes with retrofit in mind, and that long-term thing. So, but what's involved with planning, it's assessing the existing building, right? So let's start to understand and set a baseline for our existing buildings, and what are some of those things that we need to look at while we do that. We want to look at like thermal performance. So you can see the thermal image camera picture up there on the right, that you can see cold spots within the envelope, and identify problem areas. So those could be cold spots due to a roof leak. They could be cold spots due to lack of insulation. They could be cold spots due to giant thermal bridges. But having this camera and doing this type of evaluation allowed you to notice those instances and be able to look more into them, right? And understand how your building's performing, right? We want to be able to do blower door tests, and see, and what a blower door test can do is help you determine how airtight your building is, but also identify where it may not be, where it may be leaking pretty substantially. So you pressurize the house with a fan, and you can trace down also with a thermal camera. You can see cold air moving through or warm air moving through air leaks. We've done things like fogging houses, where we light off a fog machine inside the house when we pressurize it, and that pushes that fog out to the outdoors, and you can see where, major leaks are coming from. So understanding where your air leakage is can be done with blower door testing, but it also gives you a baseline to start from, right? It's always good when we start a renovation project that we do a blower door test up front, and we know what we get as a result from that test. That way, once we're done with the work, we can prove to the homeowner that we haven't actually made the house worse with what we've done. We've improved it. Even if it's just renovating a kitchen, we will do a blower door test ahead of time, right? Because more than likely you are altering those exterior walls, you are changing where plumbing's going, and entering different spaces of the house with those things, getting down into a crawl space or a basement or up into an attic with venting and those types of things. And we want to just make sure that we haven't actually turned over a project that is worse than what we started with for a client. So getting these baselines, understanding mold, indoor air quality, right? It's really easy now to get different types of testing done, whether it's for radon, or even just elevated moisture levels. You can see some of these indoor air quality monitors right there in the middle of the screen, and you can put them in the house, and it will monitor temperature, humidity, and a lot of different things, CO2 throughout the day, and you can really start to understand how your space is functioning. We often, when we were trying to understand our house, we put a indoor air quality monitor in our bedroom, and we were able to see our CO2 levels throughout the day, and we're able to notice different things that were areas of concern when we were in the space. So we would note if we closed our bedroom door and were sleeping at night, our CO2 levels would elevate to a level that was probably not good for us. So it trained us to, hey, let's leave our door open now more often when we can, or we turn the bathroom exhaust fan on ahead of time, and we can evacuate some air. So we were able to do a bunch of home was operating, and then over a course of a few months, we were like, all right, now we can start to address it with some other solutions that we can actually make permanent in the house, and we don't have to do things like, operate windows or doors and fans and stuff manually, right? So we can start to think about indoor air quality. A lot of other things we got to kind of really understand is age and life expectancy of different components of the house, because that's going to really determine, when we do things, right? Understand how your siding is and how much longer you've got on that, your roof, windows and doors, mechanical equipment, your boiler. It's like, if you've still got 10 years left on a perfectly good boiler, right? You want to plan that into your sequencing of your plan. One of my main things that we look at first before we look at anything on any project, whether it's a new build or a retrofit, is bulk water, right? It's enemy number one with all our projects. And we get a new set of plans, and the first thing I open up is I open up the roof reflected the roof plan, and I notice where all the roof water is coming off my roof, and how is it going to affect the rest of the building, how it's going to affect the ground around my building, and where are we shedding that water from. But it all starts up there where we're going to concentrate water, and that happens in a retrofit too. We get a lot of good signs if we walk around an existing building and just look up and look at the roof, and then you can usually look down and see where there's a potential problem. Or you could be walking around a house and say, oh, look, some of this painted siding's peeling in this one area, but then you can look up and say, oh, well, that's pretty obvious. The roof, you know, dumps all the water right here and it splashes against the building and it's causing problems, right? So we want to be able to just understand a lot of those different things, and bulk water is enemy number one to any building. Beyond that, you want to think about structural components, how they might get affected, and actually site conditions and weather conditions and stuff like that. So we want to be able to think about that, and that kind of actually comes more in as we start to execute. But how are we going to succeed in our retrofit, right? We need to set the goals and understand what we're doing, but we need to look at our system as a whole. So if we've done that evaluation up front, understanding all the components, even if it was just a bathroom we planned on to start with renovating, right? We want to be able to understand the entire system. So understanding your entire building, gather that information. Oh, we want to start with a bathroom. It's going to involve X, Y, and Z, but we have determined a successful approach for our exterior wall assembly. And how are we going to implement that in this one bathroom that we're retrofitting? And how are we going to extend it to the next phases of the project and make those connections? But we've got to understand that entire building system up front. But set those goals, set them, set the understand what your project outlines are going to be. If it's going to be a master bathroom, and then in a couple of years it's going to be a kitchen, then it's going to be your siding, lay those things out on a timetable, whether they're short-term or long-term goals, right? Part of all this obviously is going to be budget too, because that's going to really determine what you can do, how much money you're going to be able to spend, how quickly you're going to be able to accomplish it. So set realistic expectations and along each portion of the project. If you're going to be able to look at your retrofit all at once and do it all at once, you can see behind me what we're in right now is uh-oh. Um, is in the middle of a retrofit that the homeowner was actually able to evacuate and not live here while we're doing it. We can do it all at once, right? But and that makes the budget a little bit easier, but it requires it all up front, right? So if you're going to lay things out over a course of period of time, have some expectations for budgets along the way, right? It's always beneficial if you can involve design assistants. And honestly, you don't need to go out necessarily and hire a designer or an engineer, but start to build the resources that allow you to have access. So that's a perfect example of why passivhausMAINE is here and retrofitMAINE is here. We do have a lot of connections. We have things like this and a lot of different other trainings. So utilize those things. They're out there. It's one of the best fields that for sharing information. That's one thing I love about the passive house world is that I'm a builder here in Orono. There may be another builder here in Orono. We don't look at it as competition. We look at it as, we're going to bring the entire housing development up together, and we're going to assist each other and provide support to each other. And I think that's one of the best things I like about the passive house world, is that ability to share information. So take advantage of that wherever you can. And Passive House Maine is a great resource for that. Strategize, part of starting to look at, designers and builders, you got to start to begin to strategize different design approaches. How are you going to address your foundation during your retrofit? And then how are you going to address your exterior walls? And how are you going to address your attic? And start to take what you're looking at for each of those, and then you've got to start to look at how you are going to connect between them and transition between them and bring everything together. So that's the next piece. And then you're going to develop the phasing plan, like I said, right? If you're going to be able to do it all at once, or you're going to have to do it over the course of 20 years. It doesn't need to be quick, but having the strategy to address your entire home up front, that's going to be kind of the priority, right? And then you can do it over the course of time. And then obviously the last thing that we do is be able to try to execute on that, right? But this entire process is building what we call the master plan to your retrofit. Uh, what are the different strategies we got to start thinking about is and choosing the right equipment, material, and approaches. But we personally, we always start with demolition, right? A successful retrofit for me is if I can send the fewest amount of dumpsters to the landfill as possible, right? And I take a lot of pride in that. And we want to be able to reuse as much as we can. We've pulled studs out of existing walls and pulled nails and saved them for different strategies along the way, right? It may not make sense to frame an entire house with them or frame a wall with them, but they make great temporary framing for certain things that got to get torn out again, and you keep making smaller and smaller pieces out of them. Blocking within walls, maybe smaller walls, but you can save things like windows. If you are doing something and your windows aren't quite hit their end of life yet, but they have a few more years in it, somebody can utilize that down the road, and we can prevent it from going to the landfill, right? And then reusing stuff within our homes. There are a few places around that are starting to focus on this a little bit more, and taking on those types of materials and providing them cleaned up, easier for builders or homeowners to use in a project, lumber that's been de-nailed, windows that have been cleaned up and ready for a new install. And so they're trying to make it easier to do those things. With any retrofit, the first priority is going to be our air tightness. So that's why I always list it first. And then we get down into insulation. So I think about those things first when we start assessing projects. So if we know we are going to get ready to do our siding project, we will think about our insulation, right? Because maybe it's a good opportunity to add an air barrier to the exterior of our home and then add exterior insulation, right? So knowing the strategy that we're choosing was probably decided based on the fact that we knew that our life expectancy on our siding, or our siding was one of my priorities of things that we wanted to do in the house, then that affected those two strategies on how we addressed the situation. After we think about air tightness and insulation, we've really started to build a home that becomes very airtight, and we want to start thinking about ventilation, right? Early on, in my opinion. So I always list that like third as a priority list. Behind those, we don't want to create unhealthy situations in the home, and adding ventilation through ERVs, some sort of balanced ventilation, really becomes pretty critical at that point. Then we can start to think about windows and doors. If you've got bad ones, you've got leaky ones, those are kind of like one of the last things on my list that I kind of really address. Now, it may not make sense for your project. You may be replacing your siding and it's like, oh, that's the perfect time to replace my windows. Or you may be doing a kitchen renovation and, oh, all right, let's replace that one window while we're doing that, or at least prep that window opening as we do that renovation for a replacement in the future, right? But the windows and doors tend to fall lower on my priority. There are other things you can do to help improve them, to get you by till later in the project. The other thing that's kind of low on my priority is heating and cooling, mainly because I don't want to address my heating and cooling systems before I've addressed air tightness and insulation. If we try to adjust our heating system before we've done any of that, our heating system is either going to be way undersized and not make our space comfortable, or it's going to be way oversized for when we do address air tightness and insulation. And when equipment for those types of things are oversized, they tend to add a lot of stress to that equipment because they're turning on and turning off more frequently and for shorter periods of time. So it really doesn't help the durability and longevity of that equipment. So heating and cooling is something I tend to address, once we've definitely gotten through a few other things in the project. So extend that, even though you're burning a fossil fuel potentially in a oil burner, keep that running as long as it's efficient, right? If it was just replaced 5 years ago, we're causing more problems getting rid of it and sending it to a landfill than we are letting it run for another 5 or 10 years, right? So maximize everything to its full life expectancy. And that doesn't mean your boiler, if it's just running, run it, but make sure it's running and operating appropriately, right? It's not burning fuel bad and creating a lot of bad things on that way. One of the other things that people don't think about often, and I think is a huge importance, is water delivery system, right? In a passive house, once we've got our heating and energy demand down as much as we have, actually creating hot water uses more energy than heating the home. So that's usually like an aha moment. It's like, whoa, right? How bad is creating hot water, right? So hot water is more than just your hot water heater. It's thinking about how far we're distributing that hot water throughout the home, and are we insulating our pipes and creating shorter runs. And what I tend to think about is there's a approach out there in thinking about this is called the hot water rectangle, and it's how you basically have your floor plan and how big of an area does the hot water system develop into the floor plan, right? Do you have a bathroom way up here and a kitchen down here and another bathroom up here that requires this giant rectangle, or have you thought about condensing them down and now your hot water is all in one area, right? Reducing that amount of pipe really reduces the consumption in our hot water system. So, and lastly, you can start to think about appliances. I mean, there's appliances changing every day. Things like induction cooking can really help. Heat pump, heat pump, washer and dryers. It goes on, and we can talk about many of those types of things. But those are the strategies that you really that you're going to start thinking about. And I probably got some pictures here, but this is a project where we were saving everything. In this case, we did have an oil burner, and it came out, but we found a person that could put it into another building to get it through its life. Everything from saving doors, pulling studs, and the drywall in that. just more strategies on air tightness, and I'll go through these quickly because we're running short on time and I want to make sure we get to questions. But yeah, just some air tightness strategies, insulation strategies, everything from adding exterior insulation in the left, more insulation in the attic, dense packing, you're blowing it into existing walls, double studding walls, existing walls or making walls thicker, just some different strategies there. Ventilation, mechanical systems. You can see these are just some of the systems that come into play. Oh, this is kind of an example of an area where we saw the whole house. The paint was lasting except for this one area, right? And then we step back and we look, oh, what's that around? We see a propane tank. Okay, well, what's causing that? Then we look up and we look at the roof. The water comes off the roof, hits the propane tank, splashes back against the building, and we can see signs of failure in this existing building. So we know we're going to have to address something. And then you can see once we remove the siding, the sheathing's all rotten, the studs were rotten behind it, and we kind of, you can kind of start to see some of these things. So understanding your building to see what your building's telling you. Updating electrical is going to be a thing that's pretty popular in retrofits going forward, mainly because we're trying to electrify our homes for the most part, right? We're doing the heat pumps, we're doing the heat pump hot water heaters, we're just having more electronics in the home, and most homes have a 100 amp service. So that is going to be one of the bigger complications in retrofits is the electrical systems coming up. There are new technologies with smart electrical panels that the panel costs more, but you may not need to upgrade your entire service because the panel is smart enough to begin shedding loads and won't let you use more capacity than what you have available coming from the utility. But this is two smart panels, a solar inverter, and just some stuff there. And then this is just a good example of an existing retrofit where electricians used to just use their hammer and make a hole in the exterior wall to have an outdoor outlet, right? Air sealing, not so much there. So those are things that you just stumble upon that I just find interesting. Basements are a huge problem in Maine. It's one of the things I talk about the most. Most of our basement retrofits go this direction. We excavate the exterior of the building, clean it up, waterproof it, add insulation, add better drainage. Bulk water, as I said, is number one. And if you can make sure that you have good drainage and the ability to actually check on that drainage. So wherever you daylight under drains around the house or have inspection ports on those under drains that come to the surface that you can clean out. Never tie roof gutters or anything like that into your under drains of your system. You will put water directly where you don't want it, right? So keep those systems separate. If you want to hard pipe roof runoff, do it in a separate system. Don't tie it into your under drains. And then implementation and just get her done. So I think that's a good place to kind of breeze through and leave us, 10 or 15 minutes to get some questions or more, and we can go from there.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Randy. I'll also go ahead and I'll put all of the links, both to passivhausMAINE stuff and then to Randy as well as his email in the chat for anyone who doesn't get a chance to ask something in the moment. But at this point, folks are welcome to throw any questions that came up while Randy was going through his slides in the chat. If you have any questions about any like specific home projects that you've been thinking about or starting to work on, now is the time to pick Randy's brain, as it were. You're also welcome to go off mute at any point if you would like. And maybe while people are putting their thoughts together, I do have one question that came in advance from someone who wasn't going to be able to be here in the moment and had a question for you, Randy. So this person was wondering, what can homeowners do to protect their homes from damage when they're turning off the heat for the winter? So they're looking for things beyond just turning off the water and draining or antifreezing the plumbing, but like what else and what other damages would they be potentially even concerned about?
So that is a good question, and it is a challenging question. There's a lot of things that can happen when we stop conditioning a home, and we see it when old buildings are lived in and not maintained well, but people are living in them. Sometimes will last longer than when nobody's in them and they've been left to just be cold. A lot of different things start happen to the building, and they move in different ways. But yeah, when we shut down our buildings, we want to think about things like foundations is one thing that I find always concerning, is that right now a lot of our basements have heating systems in them, have different things like that in them, that if I was to shut that off for a winter and my basement went really cold because it's not getting that residual heat, what happens is now the frost can start to get into the ground around our house easier and start to affect our foundation. So I really worry about foundations, particularly like here in Maine, we've got a lot of stacked stone foundations, or we've got a lot of CMU block foundations rather than poured concrete foundations. And when the under slab or a basement floor starts to get frost in it, and the foundation walls start to get frost against them, that's one thing I really begin to be concerned about, the longevity of those things and how long they last. And you see it, I think, in a lot of, like, we've got a lot of camps here and they don't get winterized, and they're most of the time they're up on piers, and those piers are affected by frost, and the camps aren't level. So the frost is one of the biggest things that get me, foundations. Obviously, rodents is a huge thing when you're shutting down a house and don't plan on using it. They can cause a lot of damage within the home. So, but then just understanding what your systems are, obviously, like you said, you're going to want to prep the building, so you're thinking about draining the water and doing those types of things. So that's kind of covered, but foundations is where my biggest concern goes to.
That's great. I see it looks like
Mika?
you have, yeah, Celia off mute.
Yeah, I was
Go.
going to ask a question, but I didn't know if it was okay.
Go for it.
Okay, great. The first thing that I see is find an expert. And since you were talking about the whole house as a system, I'm absolutely lost. How do I do this? Please.
So it take baby steps is the biggest thing, right? So let's think about your entire house. What are all the different components? Let's understand what your foundation is, right? And just really, the idea is really get those thoughts and ideas into one place, right? Grab a couple photos, maybe start a list of, here's my foundation. This is what I've got existing. I've got a poured concrete, or I've got a field stone foundation. I've got a full basement. I've got a crawl space. I've got, a slab that's just on grade, and I don't have any of those things. It's just really just starting to understand what your system is, right? But I think for a lot of people, like, you got to start with, a reason to begin looking at your house, right? So it's like, oh, hey, I'm cold every night. So you start to notice that, and you want to say, oh, I need a better heating system, or I need to add more insulation, or I got to replace windows. Those are the things that start to trigger the idea of a retrofit and what you're going to do. Or, oh, I'm ready to upgrade my kitchen, so that's what really triggers it. But then starting to think about, like I said, all the different components, and just starting the list of it in different places. So thinking about doing an investigation of, my exterior walls are framed with 2x4 wood, and I've got old vinyl siding on it, right? just understanding that part of the system, I think is pretty critical. Then, then moving to your roof. So those are the types of things that I'm saying by trying to understand our system and getting them down in place. And then once you decide what that approach is that you're going to take, or what you want to do to move forward, if it's going to be, I want to replace my windows, you also need to think about insulation. So that's where finding an appropriate builder and asking questions, getting a little bit more educated on things like attending today to know that, you've got to start asking additional questions beyond just, hey, I want to have my windows replaced, right? When you bring in an expert. So I
Yeah,
don't know
and
if that helps. I mean, this is so retrofits just, blow my mind, and they're so overwhelming, and every one of them is different. So there's no clear path, but,
yeah, I think I was looking for someone who could be like a general contractor, because I've
yeah,
had a house, what do you call it, an assessment um done
perfect.
uh about 8 years ago. Then I'm looking at the ceiling in the living room, and can I paint those things? I don't know what they are. Who could tell me? Is there asbestos in it? I need to redo the little tiny bathroom. This thing is about 5 foot by 5, and it's probably going to cost me $30,000, because I don't know if the old tiles that are partially still there have asbestos.
And
Help!
that's what, and that's another place that Passive House Mate can help too. I mean, we are a membership-based organization, and many of our members are highly trained professionals that have experience in building science, passive house world. So we do have a link on our website that have our members listed in it, and it is a great resource for that. If you start to talk to other contractors, you can think about asking questions like that, just ask them what they think of air tightness. And if you get an answer back like, oh, our houses need to breathe, we don't think about air tightness, then it's kind of a red flag that you might want to find somebody that might, just go down another avenue, try to call somebody else. And it is a hard world. I get that right now in the built environment, and that builders, there's not enough of us. There's not enough tradespeople out there
Yeah.
that can get to everybody's projects and return every phone call. Most of the time we are in the field doing the work, and we get home at the end of the day, and I miss phone calls,
Yeah.
and I get to call people back. And so that is a hard part of the industry. I'd say just be persistent, and don't necessarily take it as a bad thing. Put a bad thing on one of those tradespeople that they didn't get right back to you.
No, thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've gotten to work a little bit with Celia, but it sounds like maybe that's our next step is finding that general contractor who can help with some of those larger scale stuff. We do only have a few minutes left. We've got a question in the chat, and then I think we can go back to those who can come off mute. But so Richie in the chat, Randy says, we have a cabin in Sweden, Maine that was a home build job back in 2004. I'm working on a whole load of upgrades, but what I'm looking for advice on is the fact that our interior has no moisture or vapor barriers. It's all tongue and groove onto the TGI joists, there we go, with R38 between the joists. Our main space has a vaulted ceiling, so all the moisture is hitting the underside of the roofing and condensating. Is it possible to vapor barrier this as a retrofit without a whole new roof? The roof itself seems to be not well done, but not something that they can afford to tackle anytime soon.
Yeah, this is a common problem that I get asked all the time. And that's the thing about some of these retrofits when you start to think about things like building science issues, where you are getting moisture issues condensing on surfaces. there is no like easy way to do things like this, particularly when we get in and we have a lot of tongue and groove products here in Maine. Pine is a huge commodity here. That stuff does not air seal well. And when we have a lot of air leaks, air carries a lot of moisture. So it's easy for moisture to get into our wall assemblies and our roof assemblies, right? So unfortunately, I mean, just quickly glancing at this, it seems like, a good strategy would be to potentially pull down your tongue and groove and add um, smart vapor retarder to your ceiling to help keep moisture from getting into the cavity. And then you can add additional insulation or better insulate. That's going to do two things. It's going to control the moisture from getting into your roof cavity, but it's also going to help make it more airtight. You can pull pine down with very limited damage. You got to do it carefully, but it's a great opportunity to pull down, money savings, do it yourself, pull it down, and then pull the nails and then reinstall it. So you don't necessarily have a new material that needs to go up, but getting something in behind there is huge. The next thing to think about once you've done that is maybe being able to add some continuous insulation to the exterior. We want to make sure that we can ventilate any roof spaces too. So what I like about modifications in roofs is creating an over roof a lot of times, and we'll provide a ventilated channel. So we will add strapping on top of a roof off the existing plywood, let's say, up, and then put a new layer of plywood or put metal roofing and create a good ventilated area under there. So
Awesome. Thank you, Randy. Amber, I believe you wanted
Yeah.
to go. Okay.
Totally. And I feel like this is a similar sentiment to what was spoken earlier, but I had my energy audit done, and it's a 50-page report of everything I
ooh,
need to do. And some of it is like fun. Oh, just caulk the edge of the windows. I can do that. And then some are like address the foundation of your kitchen. And I'm like, oh, that's daunting. And I feel like I'm in this catch-22 of like, this is all in an effort to reduce my energy costs. But in order to reduce my energy costs, I need to put money into the systems but in order to make money, I need to reduce my energy costs. So like, I was just wondering, in terms of prioritization, is there something that I can do that's a little bit like low-hanging fruit? Like I've heard that hot pump or heat pump water heaters are a great return on investment quickly. Um, is there something that no matter what should be prioritized first? I know Colin is saying you got a dirt floor basement, tarp that over first and foremost, because I did add some insulation. Now I have moisture problems, and moisture can, rot out my building, causing more issues down the line. So I guess the question is, are there I don't know, quicker, simpler things to do that are maybe more like, I don't want to focus on just Band-Aid solutions, but if there's like something like a magical heat pump like that saves energy costs so I can save up to get to those bigger structural things, love to.
so yeah, I mean, this is a challenge, obviously. The things that I always lean to is actually, honestly, uh, the comfort side of things and the healthy side of things first, even though they may not save on your wallet, that you can see on like a monthly basis. Those things will save on your wallet when it comes to the building failing quicker than it's going to, or being sick and not being able to work and those types of things. So comfort and health are big things. So yes, if you've got a dirt basement, priority number one is get a good vapor barrier down there, control the moisture from getting into your house, because that is going to be a huge problem. If you've got a failing foundation, understand why that foundation's failing. Is it because of bulk water? And a lot of foundations fail because you're dumping water off your roof to an area near the ground around that foundation, right? And altering those things to make the house more stable, and then it'll make it easier to start doing additional things. When it comes to um, heat pump hot water heaters, I changed one in my house. It saved me a little bit of money, but it wasn't a significant thing. I noticed other things beyond that that could be a problem. It all depends. If you've got a basement, now you're dumping cold air into your basement, or you're removing heat from your basement, which could have side effects. So it's a complicated issue, right? It is an easy way to go to just, save a few bucks, but you've got the expense of putting it in too, and the payback on it, right? Makes sense. So I I always lean to those comfort and health things before the efficiency, because if you can address some of those comfort and health things, then honestly some efficiency will come out of that, right? I mean, if you seal up your basement with a vapor barrier and address some of the air sealing, your heating system's not going to require to run as much, and you're going to be more comfortable, so you're going to be happier, and those types of things. So
Thank you.
All right, we only have a few minutes left. I do have a quick little exit poll that I'm going to pop up on your screen. It's just a couple of questions, just for our own purposes. Let us know if you are happy with Randy here for our webinar, if it felt like a good use of your time. And then also, if you have any specific topics that you'd like to see in a future webinar of ours, we're doing these quarterly. We'll put them out on our newsletter for passivhausMAINE. If you're not signed up, you can do so online. And so if you're looking for any specific topics that you want to dig in further in depth on, we'll be able to bring in additional speakers. So please fill that out as you get a chance. It should be popped up on your screen at the moment. So go ahead and as you go through. And maybe while folks are filling that out, one of the other questions that we put a little bit of responses in the chat, those who knew about it, but Randy, if you want to add on, Michelle was asking if renewable energy sources such as installing solar is typically considered with retrofit assessments. I explained with energy audits, it can be, but it's not a full assessment. And then otherwise, it seems like contractors like you, it kind of depends, right?
yeah, so when I start to think about renewables, I really start to think about reducing my consumption first, right? So renewables are expensive. I mean, it's a very expensive portion of the project. So when we look at what we want to be able to do for renewables, we want to get our usage down as much as we can. So we're increasing the efficiency of the building and all those types of things. And then we're deciding on how much renewables are necessary, right? It's hard to look at. I'm not, we can make any building net zero if we put up enough renewables, right? But that gets really expensive also. So I like the idea of bringing our energy and our consumption down and then sizing renewables for it. So you can also predict the future in a sense and say, all right, we're going to do and reduce a bunch in the future throughout the course. But if it makes sense to do the solar first, size it for that future use rather than like your current use, right? And that way you're not overpaying for it. But we are doing renewables on most of our projects. We just did battery and solar on the last 3 projects.
Thanks, Randy. All right, well, with that, we are at time. So round of virtual applause for Randy. Thank you so very much for your time and expertise today. If anyone hasn't filled out the poll yet, it looks like everyone has, but thank you all very much for your time today. The recording will be online later, probably this month at this point, as we get that situated on our website. So if you want to look back on any of it, you are welcome to at that point. But thank you all so very much, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.